Meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Has everyone now had the opportunity to read the minutes of the last meeting?
We have?
Yes.
All right, a motion to approve the minutes as distributed would be appropriate.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor of the motion to approve the minutes as distributed, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The minutes are approved. Our case staff?
We have one case tonight. It is case number 4-21-A. The applicant is Tom and Linda Muth, located at 4512 Forest Trail. The applicant is requesting that the Union Township Board of Zoning Appeals grant variances and relief from provisions of section 711.2, .5, .6, and 801.2 of the Union Township zoning resolution in order to increase the maximum accessory building allowance from 750 square feet to 2,400 square feet with a 600 square foot open porch in order to allow for a storage building within the R2 district. Relief from section 711.2 would give permission to increase the accessory size allowance from 750 square feet to 3,000 square feet on a lot in the R2 district. Relief from section 11.5 would give permission to increase the accessory structure height limit from 14 feet to 19 feet and 9/5/8 inches in the residential zone. Relief from section 711.6 would give permission to locate the accessory building within the front yard of the property. And relief from section 801.2 would give permission to increase the paved area in front of the accessory building to accommodate maneuverability of equipment. The subject property is located on the corner of Eichholz Road and Forest Trail in the west central area of Union Township. Some background information: the applicant's property is zoned R2 and totals 3.7 net acres with 5.524 acres if the right-of-way is included within the property. Access to the lot is from Forest Trail, providing entry to the home site that includes the principal structure with no additional accessory structures at this time. The current site is heavily wooded with a large roadway and drainage easement running north of the property along Eichholz Road. There is varying topography through the site, with the area closest to the house being the most level and sloping off towards Eichholz Road. Surrounding property includes residential to the south and east along Forest and Finney Trail, and B1 located north and east along Eichholz Road. The proposed structure is located in the front yard with Eichholz Road being the side of the lot with the least dimension. Proposed materials include metal siding with a metal roof, and the proposed access for the accessory structure is off of Eichholz Road, requiring approval from the Clermont County engineer. The drive is to be paved with a minimum surface area provided in the front of the building to maneuver vehicles and equipment. The applicant has a large RV along with various recreational vehicles, trailers, and cars that would be stored inside the proposed structure. The applicant states that the location of the proposed accessory will be the least intrusive to the neighborhood, as it is being placed further away from the existing residential homes. After reviewing the proposed variance submitted, the following observations can be made. Per section 434 of the zoning resolution, variances may be made to increase the maximum gross floor area, but generally not more than 25%. The current proposal is 4 times larger than the allowance of an R2 residential lot. Although the lot is zoned R2 single-family residential, this parcel is significantly larger than typical R2 lots, netting 3.7 acres in size, excluding the right-of-way. Generally, larger acre parcels are conducive to greater percentage increase in floor area for accessory buildings due to the ample lot area available and larger setbacks to adjoining properties. The proposed variance does not appear to encourage or otherwise allow the establishment of uses not otherwise permitted within the district. The proposed variance is situated towards Eichholz Road, being further away from the surrounding residential zone property and more towards the businesses. This will be beneficial for the adjacent residents due to the location of the home and the configuration of the lot. The proposed structure does not appear to impede light or air to the surrounding properties, nor does it appear to cause greater runoff to its surroundings. The proposed driveway location should be dependent on the approval from the Clermont County engineer, subject to change if curb cut is denied. Administrative review should be permitted if the Clermont County denies the Eichholz Road driveway to accommodate reasonable access to the structure. The action required is to approve, modify, or deny the applicant's request for variance in case number 4-21-A, requesting relief to section 711.2, 711.4, and 711.6, and 801.2 of the Union Township zoning resolution as to allow for the construction of an accessory building that would increase the size from 750 square feet to 300 square feet and increase the height from 14 feet to 19 feet and 9/5 inches in the designated front yard based on evidence, testimony, and finding of fact. Recommended modifications include the allowance of administrative review on the access of the proposed structure if the Clermont County engineer denies the cited access point and drive.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, we did receive one communication from an adjoining resident that could not attend this evening due to his work schedule. If the board, if it suits the pleasure of the board, I'd like to read that into the record for the board.
Yeah, please do.
Yes, sir. The Union Township Board of Zoning Appeals, Union Township Civic Center, 4350 Eichholz Road, Cincinnati, Ohio, 45245, received May 5th at 3:53 p.m. Zoning Committee members, I am unable to attend this public hearing due to my work schedule. I am writing to support the zoning variance requested in case 421A by Thomas and Linda Muth at 4512 Forest Trail, Cincinnati, Ohio, 45244. My family and I have lived in this location for more than 20 years. The seclusion and wildlife that the wooded area directly adjacent to my property provides is integral to its value and appeal. Construction and usage of the currently approved accessory building at 4512 will negatively impact the area. Approval of the variance and construction of the accessory building, along with access from Eichholz Road, is much preferred and will alleviate these concerns. Please take this into account during your consideration of approval for the zoning variance in question. Respectfully, Terry and Sherry Chrisman, 4506 Forest Trail, Cincinnati, Ohio, 45244. A
Thank
copy
you.
will be entered into the case file for the record.
Thank you. Is there anyone to speak in favor of the application? If you would, raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Go ahead, state your name and spell your last name for the record, please.
Okay. Thomas Muth, M-U-T-H. And I want to introduce my wife, Linda Muth. It's right here. And we also have a zoning consultant, a good friend of my wife through Rotary, who's helped us with the variance process. I'm not very good at those kinds of things, so Tim Hirschner is here and helped us write up the variance process over the last few weeks. So we also have a couple neighbors that live right by us, actually next door to the Chrismans. Jerry and Mary Neese are here. And I guess we're here to answer any questions that you might have about the project.
Okay, anybody have any questions?
Did it?
I don't have any.
And reading Exhibit A for the variance, 711.2, it seems that, was there already an approval, you said, for a building that, an addition that would be attached to your home? Is that right?
Yes.
That was already approved?
That's already approved.
And then you decided you're going to do this instead?
We prefer to do that,
You prefer
yes.
to do this instead? Okay. And could I know the reason for that? Why this instead of the other that was already approved?
Well, part of it is that the neighbors would much prefer that.
Okay.
And I think just for the neighborhood, I think it just makes it look better. if it's detached as opposed to connected to the house.
Okay,
That's the main reasons. And we've got a lot of land.
yes.
Any other questions? Okay, is there anyone else who wants to speak in favor of the application?
Hello. I'm Mary Jo Meese.
You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
State your name and spell your last name for the record, please.
Mary Jo Meese, M-E-E-C-E. As far as we're concerned, it's everything that he wants to do. He has talked to us and explained it. It's fine with us. It's actually better than his other option, which would put that much, much closer to our property line. And we've lived there for over 51 years, so I mean, we are very familiar with everything over there, but we're fine with it.
Okay, any questions from the board?
No.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who wants to speak in favor of the application? Okay, I know this is a waste, but does anyone want to speak in opposition to the application? Seeing none, hearing none, discussion of the board?
I mean, it's already been approved for another location. Under ours, I think it's awful big for,
Yeah,
I was unclear as to the actual demonstrated hardship, for the very reason that it had already been approved as another option. Though I understand neighbors may not have been as crazy about that. I'm not sure how, if anyone can help me understand the demonstrated hardship for the variance.
Well, it is my
Especially in light of the size of it, because it's in,
It is my understanding that staff has adopted the position that any size structure is approvable as long as it is attached to the principal dwelling. I happen to vehemently disagree with that position.
Would you like clarification on that, Mr. Chairman?
No, I intend to take it up with the trustees. This is the third time that issues have come up before this board. Well, one time it did not come up before the board, but where the staff has given approval to an attached accessory structure.
The zoning code's fairly clear that if it is part of the structure, it has to meet the setbacks that apply to the principal structure. If somebody wants to build a 7,000 square foot home, they can do that if the lot setbacks permit it. I understand your position, Mr. Chairman, but the reality is that if the code says it's part of the principal structure, it's attached with the usable square footage, which is the requirement, and it meets the setback, then it has to be granted. That said, I think that I understand your concern. We are bound by the limits of the resolution.
Well, I don't agree with that interpretation, but I think the trustees need to take a look at the provisions so that we don't get these monstrous accessory structures simply because they're attached to the principal structure.
You know, we can certainly research that code issue as part of our ongoing zoning code update process, which we do not necessarily annually, but, you know, on a fairly frequent basis.
You know, we had a case not too long ago at 4106 Withensville, where they asked for a large structure, and we denied the request.
Yes, and
And
then
then they decided to attach it with a little hallway, so they went ahead and built it.
it actually is, I believe, fully integrated into the structure. But yeah, basically the guy turned the structure into a horseshoe, essentially, creating a courtyard in the middle of that. But yet it is attached and it is part of the principal structure.
I don't know
Not
why
to
we
add to
would have
that
this.
directly, but I think as the board, though, we're here to grant a variance to this zoning resolution, which is what we have in this book.
Correct.
If we set a precedence of granting a 200% increase, regardless, it doesn't say that the R2 district is on a half-acre lot versus a 5-acre lot. I completely agree with the fact that the building fits that lot. I mean, but in here, it's to the R2 or R1. This situation, it's an R2, which is 750 square feet. So what's to say the next person doesn't want a 3,000 square foot building on a half-acre lot?
Right.
And argue against their 3,000 square foot building.
And yes, and the way that the code is structured currently, it ties the structure size to the district in lieu of tying it to the acreage of the lot to a certain extent, with some variability for larger R2 lots, allowing another 100 square feet or that over what would otherwise be allowed. But you're correct, yes.
I feel like there needs to be changes made to this
To the
in
except,
reference to the square footages of the lot.
and look at it from a lot area coverage basis as opposed to, and that's another issue that
I don't know if any of you agree with that or disagree,
I
but
I
agree.
do agree.
we could certainly look into that.
it puts us in a predicament.
I hadn't noticed earlier, but I do want to point out that the suggested motion, the action required, has an error in it. The requested relief is to 711.2, 711.5, not 4, and the others.
711.4 has to do with club swimming pool.
711, that's 714.
711.4, accessory structures shall not be used as dwellings for
That's,
homes.
okay, so it's,
Yeah, so it's-
yes, we'll make that correction.
Supposed
Yes,
to be 711.5, not
we
711.4.
we will make that correction.
Any other discussion of the board? Any questions for the applicant? No. Anybody prepared to make a motion? Apparently not.
Well,
Do you have any other thoughts, Brian? You're pretty,
only for the benefit of the applicant, because I don't want our board to appear to be, number one, that all we do is argue and don't know what we're doing. That's number one. Number two, this is an unfortunate situation because this is something that's been coming to a head for a while, as you can tell. And something has to be done, all right? And what we're in a position to do is to kind of force the issue so something can be done so that in the future, we're not having to do this. And you may be wondering, well, what do you mean, what are you having to do? Well, what we mean is we don't want this, what we go by, the resolution, to become a joke. Because, and how would it become a joke? Well, it would become a joke is if every time someone comes up, we just keep allowing the size to increase, and we never take a stand. Now, it would be much easier if instead we had a change to this. And so,
so
in your mind, you would think, well, just do it one more time, brother, and then make the change. Unfortunately, I don't think that's gonna result in our action we want.
So is it possible, and I don't know the legalities of making the change to this, but is it possible to postpone this until next month?
I believe.
Possibly make a change to,
Or is the process too
No,
long for
I,
that?
I believe that the board is obligated based on the code to make the decision. That said, should the applicant may choose to voluntarily withdraw the application and then resubmit at a later date if there were a code change. But again, that's highly speculative, and that process can typically take about 75 to 80 days, assuming there's no multiple public hearings or anything like that, just by 5/19/12, by virtue of a zoning text amendment. That can be done one of three ways. It can be done by applicant, it can be done by the zoning commission, but in Union Township, typically it's been done vis-a-vis a resolution by the Board of Trustees. If we were to initiate that, the trustees would initiate the text amendment. The text amendment would then be forwarded to the zoning commission for the next zoning commission hearing. Zoning commission would review that, make a recommendation that then goes to the trustees for final action. And then there's a 30-day, for lack of a better term, it's a referendum period where all text amendments are subject to referendum by the citizens. So if enough citizens didn't like the proposed zoning change, they could petition to put it on the ballot. So there's that process and that unknown. We have not had a text amendment repealed or referendum since I've been here. But we don't amend the code that frequently.
And actually, what we would be asking is really just to put it in a line with variances we've already been given, but to put us in a better position so it doesn't appear that we just don't even care what this says anymore.
Yeah, if I hear what the board is saying, you would like us to look into and research the instead of tying it necessarily to a district, tying it to a lot and floor area to a lot area ratio, or some rational nexus between that as opposed to the current nexus that we have.
Yeah.
The one issue that we have with our two lots is the structures. We really can't go smaller because we've been allowing 750 square feet forever. And then what issue that has, if you go smaller than that, then you end up with, potentially hundreds of nonconformities, which is not a good situation either.
But we wouldn't have to go smaller.
No, and you could make a minimum of 750.
Right.
I mean, and again, we can research all that and then, go through that or whatever. So.
We have a question.
Yes, sir.
If I may, Tim Hirschner, I'd like to address both of your concerns and the board. I think it sounds like the board's concerned. Just for the record, it's Tim Hirschner.
I need to swear you
Oh,
in.
yes, sir.
You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
It's Tim Hirschner, H-E-R-S-H-N-E-R. What you're dealing with here is not unusual. My 30 years, plus 30 years in the zoning and land use business, this comes up time and time again. One particular point of precedent setting, a lot of people believe that if you approve a variance, you've then approved, or you'll have to approve that same variance each time it comes before you. I would argue that you establish a basis on why you're approving a given variance. In this case, you've got a lot that's 8 times the size of the minimum lot size in this zoning district. And in that case, a larger accessory building would be appropriate. But it's even more so appropriate because of its location. It's further away from the surrounding residential properties. It has commercial to the north and to the west. You establish this basis so that if somebody else comes in with the exact same case, okay, there's a precedent on that basis that you should approve, if everything is equal. But there are so many different conditions on any given property, that nothing is generally equal. So I always argue that nothing is precedent-setting, because if you dig far enough, you'll find some reason why there's a difference between each different property that comes before you. The other case, the issue that was brought up, is just being, in general, against these large attached garages. And I think the township's hands are tied as the code is presently written. And the only, I don't know your code well enough, but the only out in that instance is if the garage portion of the property becomes the predominant use of the property, square footage, whatever, you might have a leg to stand on to say that the use has really changed from single-family residential to a storage facility or something to that effect. That's not an issue here because we're actually trying to do what your code suggests in preserving the health, safety, and welfare of not only people, but the property. I'm probably the one to blame for this coming before you tonight, because when I visited the Muse out on their property and saw where they were proposing to put the attached building, I said, well, my gosh, one, you've got residents just adjacent to it. That can be damaging. And you have acreage here that just is begging for that to be located on. And a day later, Tom called me up and said, you know, that's a great idea. We're going to go with that. So that's why we're here tonight. Blame me. But I think it's you're well within your rights to approve this. Just make sure you have these conditions in it so that you don't have somebody else come forward with, you know, whether it's a 3 or 5 acre parcel, but they're locating the building adjacent to another residential house nearby. There's a lot of great uniqueness about this case that I think it has merit. Otherwise, I wouldn't have recommended it. So I plead with you to consider that. And yes, I think staff can work with amongst themselves. Corey's done a great job in administering the zoning code, or even look into a consultant and rework the code so that you have the assurances that these things don't happen. You know, there's always, I would argue, a way around it to make sure that it doesn't set a precedent. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to address and give you whatever I can to solve the problem. Because you do have a problem. You know, if somebody's building a garage that's double the size of your house, that's, I don't think, appropriate. But maybe your code is written such that Corey's hands are tied at this point. So any questions, I'm happy to talk about them.
I appreciate it.
Okay, thank you.
Any other thoughts, Tom? I don't think these applicants need to keep paying the price for, I think this will illustrate failures. I'm going to make a motion to approve the applicant's request for variance in case 221A, requesting relief to section 711.2, 711.5, 711.6, and 802, or 801.2 of the Union Township zoning resolution as to allow for construction of an accessory building that would increase the size from 750 square feet to 3,000 square feet total with an open porch, and increase the height from 14 feet to 19 feet, 9 5/8, whatever, inches, in the designated front yard based on the evidence, testimony, and finding of fact, including the 3.7 net acre lot size.
Is that strictly based on the curb cut being approved?
in location to nearby commercial property.
Okay, we can add that in a second, or end of the motion.
I'd like to add that to the motion. And to location to nearby commercial property.
Okay, I accept that amendment to my motion. Is there a second to our amended motion?
The amendment, might as well make the second. You made the amendment, you ought to go ahead and make
I'll
the
second it.
Yep, there we go.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded, clerk call the roll.
Mr. Hanahan?
Aye.
Mr. Jank?
Aye.
Mr. Ford?
Aye.
Mr. Walker?
Aye.
And Mr. Cangrove?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Motion carried. Thank you very much. If the Clermont County engineer denies your curb cut, you could be in trouble.
We've been in talk with them, but they're taking, it's taking certain amount of time. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. We're very happy to be in the neighborhood now.
All we did was kick the can down the road. We didn't.
I just don't think this applicant should have been paying the price for issues that we have with the way the zoning code is written. But I still have those issues.
Mr. Chairman, we were absolutely clear on that, and we'll look into some other alternatives and start reviewing those on a staff level.
I think the issue that Randy brought up about the, relative to lot size and proportion of accessory structures is one issue, and being able to put some kind of limitation on the size of garages, even though they might be attached to houses. I mean, it's just, the one on Mount Carmel Tabasco Road is just a joke.
So you would like to see maybe some limitation that the square footage of the garage should not exceed the square footage of the actual living space?
So there's a couple of caveats to that and some nuances when you get into that. So what'll probably happen is you'll get larger homes, and they'll include living space above the garage to increase the floor area of the house commensurate
So
with
that it's
that
not
as an offset. So it's very conceivable on, say, let's pick a lot in, there's some very large homes off of Nature Trail, Lindy Lane, a lot of big lots, 5, 7, 10-acre parcels. If somebody were to build down there, they could conceivably build a 5,000 or 6,000 or 7, there's actually a 7,500 square foot house down there. And I think it's got a 4 or 5 car garage attached to it. And I think there might even be living space above it. And so you could see that as a consequence of that. But again, I understand your concern. We can look into that certainly and see if there's a way or if there's any other examples that there has been some floor area cap placed upon that. Part of our calculation for floor area of a home excludes the garage and the basement for purposes of calculating the floor area of the house. So you have to at least build, 1,000 square foot ranch or a 1,200 square foot two-story. And that can't include, covered porches. It can't include the basement, crawl space, or the garage. So it's got to be exclusive of that.
Well, there's got to be some way to be able to word in the zoning resolution that, a garage that is integrated into the house doesn't mean that it's connected with a friggin' hallway, or that it can have a garage door opening of 12 or 14 feet. And there's got to be a way that can be added in there. It is just a joke that one on Mount Carmel Tabasco Road, I mean, there's no question in my mind that they're using that for commercial purposes. They got two, y'all know what I'm talking about. It's just ridiculous. That's not attached.
And
They got a hallway running over to them.
And I do understand what their advocate was saying about not officially setting a precedent. I'm not so worried about that as I am our relationship with the community and,
Right.
and the appearance of being totally arbitrary or biased,
Yeah.
right? Because I
Right.
can see how folks would just not understand.
Have to remember from one case to the next, if you made this, you know, a year ago, and then you got another thing, and you go the other side, and they bring it up and go, oh, I didn't remember that.
Yeah,
That's the problem I
No,
have.
not adjourned.
yeah.
We don't have any other business for
No,
the board
I'm
this
sorry.
evening. It's
Okay, no further discussion of the board?
No, I make a motion to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. We're adjourned.
7:35.